The little purple threads on your thighs are not a skin problem. Let me say that again, because almost everyone gets it backward. Those fine red and purple lines you can see on the surface of your legs, the ones you've been told are just cosmetic, just part of getting older, just something to cover with a longer skirt or a pair of trousers. They are not where the story starts. They are where the story finally becomes visible. What you can see on the surface is the very end of a chain that begins much deeper in your leg, in a place you cannot see at all. And once you understand that chain link by link, you will never look at those veins the same way again. I want to walk you through it slowly today. Not the way it gets explained in a rushed 7-minute appointment where someone glances at your legs and says, "That's normal, don't worry about it," because it may be common, but common and harmless are not the same word. By the end of this, you'll know exactly what those surface veins are pointing to, what your body is quietly telling you, and the simple things that can take pressure off the whole system starting tonight. Now, before we follow this chain down, one quick thing. So much of what happens in aging legs comes back to one theme: fluid and pressure that stop moving the way they should. I put everything I know about that why the body starts holding fluid after 60, and a gentle 30-day reset to help it move again into a short guide called the Drainage Protocol. It's plain language, evidence-based, and the link is in the description if you want it. That's the only time I'll mention it. Let's get back to your legs. Here's the honest truth most people never hear. The visible spider veins are what we call the first link in a chain, and it's the link at the very bottom of the staircase. To understand them, we have to climb back up, one step at a time, until we reach the real source. So let's start at the surface, where you can actually see the problem and then follow it inward. The first link is the spider vein itself. What is it really? A spider vein is a cluster of tiny blood vessels sitting just under your skin that have become swollen and widened enough to show through. On its own, a single small vessel is thinner than a hair. You'd never notice one. But when a whole group of them swells at the same time, in the same patch of skin, they become visible as those web-like lines, which is exactly why they're called spider veins. According to the Cleveland Clinic, these are simply small blood vessels that have dilated or stretched open close to the surface of your skin. So here's the first question that actually matters. Why did they stretch open? Vessels don't just decide to swell for no reason. Something pushed them, and that something is the second link in our chain. The second link is the vein that feeds them. Every one of those little surface vessels is connected to a slightly larger vein, sitting a little deeper, what doctors call a superficial vein, meaning a vein close to the surface, but not the deepest one. Think of the small spider veins as the narrow side streets, and this superficial vein as the local road they all empty into. When that local road backs up, the pressure has to go somewhere. And it pushes outward, into the smallest, most delicate side streets, the ones with the thinnest walls. Those are your spider veins. They swell because the road above them is overloaded. So now you can feel the chain starting to pull. The spider vein isn't the problem. It's the overflow. It's the pressure release valve for a road that's carrying too much. Which means we have to ask the next question. Why is that road backing up? And this is where I want to pause and say, if this way of explaining your body is the kind of thing you've been missing, subscribe and stay with me, because the next few videos build directly on this one. These mechanisms connect. All right, back to the chain. To answer why the road backs up, we need the third link, and this is the one that changes everything. The third link is a tiny structure inside your veins that most people have never heard of. It's called a valve, a one-way valve. Let me explain what these valves do, because once you picture them, the whole condition makes sense. Your leg veins have a very hard job. They have to carry blood from your feet all the way back up to your heart. And they have to do it uphill, against gravity, every second that you're standing or sitting upright. Blood in your legs is essentially being asked to climb. Now, blood can't climb on its own, so your veins are built with a clever solution. Every few inches, along the inside of the vein, there are small flaps of tissue, the valves. They open to let blood pass upward, toward the heart, and then they close behind it, so the blood can't fall back down. Open, let it up, close. Open, let it up, close. All the way up your leg. Here's the freshest way I can help you see it. Picture a canal built on the side of a hill, a staircase of water. You cannot make water flow uphill in one straight push. So engineers build a series of locks, little chambers with gates. A boat enters the lowest chamber, the gate closes behind it, the water level rises, and the boat is lifted to the next step. Then the gate ahead opens, and it moves up. Chamber by chamber, gate by gate, the boat climbs the hill, even though water, on its own, only ever wants to run down. Your leg veins are exactly that staircase of locks, and the valves are the gates. Each valve holds the blood at its level, so the next push can lift it higher. As long as every gate closes tightly behind the blood, the system works beautifully. You never think about it. Your blood climbs the hill and returns to your heart, and your legs feel light. But here's what happens with time, and with the things we'll talk about in a moment. Some of those gates stop closing all the way. The flaps of the valve weaken or stretch or thicken, and they no longer meet in the middle. And when a gate doesn't seal, what happens on a canal? The water in the upper chamber leaks backward, down into the lower one. On a canal, that's a nuisance. In your leg, it has a name. Doctors call it reflux blood flowing backward, the wrong way, down the leg, when it should be going up. The Cleveland Clinic describes it plainly. When these valves in your leg veins don't work properly, blood pools in the veins, and the pressure inside those veins rises. A vascular surgeon at Keck Medicine of USC put it in one sentence over time. The valves in those veins stop working, and because they aren't working, blood can't travel back up the leg, so it pools in the lower leg instead. Do you see what just happened? We started at a purple thread on your thigh, and we've arrived at a leaking gate deep inside your leg. That's the third link, but it's still not the very bottom of the staircase. There's one more link, the root, and it ties everything together. The fourth link, the deepest one, is pressure. Venous pressure. And this is the true source of everything you can see on the surface. Let me connect it. When those one-way gates start leaking, blood that should have climbed toward your heart falls backward and collects in the lower part of your leg. It pools. And pooled blood takes up space and weight. That extra volume, sitting there and pressing outward, raises the pressure inside your veins. Doctors have a term for this too: venous hypertension, which simply means high pressure inside the veins, not the blood pressure you measure on your arm at the pharmacy. A separate local pressure built up inside the veins of your legs. And now walk the chain back up with me, from the bottom to the top, and watch how it all clicks. High pressure deep in the leg pushes back on the superficial veins closer to the surface. Those overloaded superficial veins push back on the tiniest, most fragile vessels of all. And those tiny vessels, stretched and swollen from the pressure below, finally become visible through your skin as spider veins. That's the whole chain: skin, surface vein, leaking valve, deep pressure. The purple threads on your thigh are the last visible link of a problem that started, invisibly, several steps deeper. They're the tip. They are your body drawing a map on the outside of your leg of something happening on the inside. This is why calling them just cosmetic misses the point so completely. A spider vein isn't a flaw in your skin, it's a pressure gauge. And when the gauge shows a reading, the honest response isn't to paint over the gauge. It's to ask what's raising the pressure. So let's ask exactly that. What weakens those gates and raises that pressure in the first place? Because this is where you get some real power over the situation. The first factor is time itself, but not in the vague way people mean when they shrug and say, it's just age. Here's the specific change. Over the years, the walls of your veins and the flaps of those valves can gradually lose some of their elasticity and strength. A gate that was once crisp and springy becomes a little softer, a little slower to close. That's a real physical change, and it's part of why this becomes more common as the decades pass. The Cleveland Clinic notes that the risk of this whole condition rises with age. But, and this matters enormously, age loads the gun. It doesn't pull the trigger, because the single biggest thing that keeps those gates working has nothing to do with how old you are. It has to do with how much you move. And that brings us to the most important part of this entire chain, the part you can actually change. It's a second pump hiding in your leg. Here's what almost no one explains. Your heart pushes blood down into your legs just fine. Gravity helps it on the way down. The hard part is getting it back up. And your heart is too far away to do that job alone. So your body has a second pump, low in the leg, that does most of the lifting. It's your calf muscle. Every time your calf muscle contracts, every single step you take, it squeezes the deep veins buried inside it, like a hand squeezing a tube of toothpaste. That squeeze drives the blood upward, through the next gate, up the staircase. Researchers estimate that this calf muscle pump provides roughly half of all the energy needed to move blood back up out of your legs. Half. Your legs have a second heart and it runs on walking. Now you can see the trap clearly. What happens when we sit for hours or stand still for a long shift? The calf pump goes quiet, the squeezing stops. And when the pump stops, blood isn't being driven up the staircase, it sits. It pools at the bottom, pressing on those gates, hour after hour. Yale Medicine lists prolonged standing or sitting as a direct cause because it raises the pressure in the leg veins over time. The gates that were only slightly weak now spend hours under a load they were never meant to hold. And weak gates under constant load leak sooner. So here's the quiet chain reaction that catches so many people after the age of 60. We move a little less each year. As we move less, the calf pump fires less. As the pump fires less, blood pools more. As it pools more, the pressure climbs. As the pressure climbs, the gates leak. And as the gates leak, the surface veins swell, until one day you notice a little web of purple on your thigh and assume it's just your skin, just your age. But it isn't. It's a movement problem, showing up as a skin sign. Before we get to what you can do about all of this, and there's a real encouraging amount you can do, I have to stop and give you the part of this that I will never skip. Because most of the time, this whole story is a slow, manageable, treatable one. But not always. And you deserve to know the difference. Please listen closely here. Certain signs in your legs are not part of the slow story. They can point to something urgent, and they mean you contact a medical professional promptly, not next month. If one leg, usually just one, suddenly becomes swollen, and it feels warm to the touch, and there's a new pain or tenderness in the calf, sometimes with the skin looking red or discolored, that combination can be the sign of a blood clot deep in the vein. That is not something to watch and wait on. That is a same-day call to a doctor or urgent care. If you develop an open sore or an ulcer on your lower leg or near your ankle that won't heal or keeps coming back, that needs medical attention. If the skin around your ankles is changing color, turning brown, hardening, or thickening, that's a sign the pressure has been high for a long time, and it should be evaluated. And if a vein suddenly starts bleeding, apply gentle pressure, lie down, raise the leg, and seek help. None of this is meant to frighten you. It's meant to give you a clear line. Slow changes over months, evaluated calmly with your doctor. That's the ordinary path. But sudden swelling in one leg with warmth and pain, a non-healing sore, or hardening, darkening skin, those move to the front of the line. And nothing in this video replaces a real conversation with your own doctor, who can look at your actual legs and, if needed, do a simple, painless ultrasound to see exactly how your valves are working. That test is called a venous reflux ultrasound, and it's the honest way to know what's happening inside. All right, now for the good news, because there's a lot of it. Here is the single most encouraging fact in all of this. You may not be able to physically repair a gate that's already stretched. The research is honest about that. But you have tremendous control over the pressure pressing on those gates. And when you lower the pressure, you slow the whole chain down, ease the symptoms, and stop the slow march from getting worse. You're not helpless in front of this. You have the second pump. Let me show you how to use it. The first and most powerful tool costs nothing, and it's walking. This is the direct way to switch the calf pump back on. Every step squeezes those deep veins and lifts blood up the staircase, taking the load off the gates. And you don't need to become an athlete. In one study of people with this exact condition, a structured program of calf-focused exercise over several months brought the pumping function of the calf muscle back into the normal range. The gates themselves didn't magically heal, but the pump got strong enough to move the blood anyway. That's the whole game. A strong pump can carry a leaky system. So here's how to actually do it. Instead of thinking about one long walk, think about frequency. Short walks, often, beat one big walk followed by hours of sitting. Even 5 or 10 minutes of walking several times through the day keeps the blood moving and the pressure down. If you're someone who sits for long stretches, reading, watching, at a desk. In the car, set yourself a gentle rule. Every 30 to 60 minutes, stand up and move for a minute or two. Think of them as movement snacks. Small, frequent, and they keep the pump from ever going fully silent. And if you can't walk right at that moment, there's a tiny exercise you can do sitting in a chair. Keep your heels on the floor and lift the balls of your feet. Then reverse it, keeping your toes down and lifting your heels up as high as you can, like you're pressing a gas pedal. Then pumping up onto your tiptoes. Do that 20 or 30 times. That heel raise motion is the calf muscle contracting. You are literally working the second heart by hand. You can do it during a commercial break, in a waiting room, at the kitchen counter, while the kettle boils. The second tool is gravity used in your favor for once. All day, gravity pulls blood down into your legs, so give your legs part of the day where gravity works the other way. Lie down and elevate your legs above the level of your heart. A few pillows under your calves or your feet up against a wall is enough. When your feet are higher than your heart, the blood in your legs no longer has to climb, it drains back on its own, and the pressure inside those veins drops. A comprehensive medical review found that raising the legs to or above heart level for around 30 minutes, 3 to 4 times a day, improved the circulation in the skin and helped reduce swelling. You don't have to do all 4. Even once or twice a day, say, 30 minutes with your legs up in the evening gives the system a real rest. And elevating your legs while you sleep, with a pillow under the mattress at the foot of the bed, extends that relief through the night. The third tool is gentle, steady compression. This is where compression stockings come in, and I want to demystify them, because a lot of people picture something uncomfortable in medical. What they actually do is simple and elegant. A graduated compression stocking is tightest at the ankle and gradually looser as it goes up the leg. That gentle outside squeeze does from the outside what your calf pump does from the inside. It narrows the veins so the leaking gates have less room to fall backward through, and it helps push the blood upward instead of letting it pool. Compression is considered one of the mainstays of managing this condition. Now, one honest note. Compression isn't right for absolutely everyone, particularly if you also have certain circulation problems in your arteries. So the responsible move is to ask your doctor or pharmacist about the right level for you before you buy the strong ones. But it's one of the most effective, lowest cost tools there is. The fourth tool is taking weight off the system in 2 senses. Carrying extra body weight raises the pressure inside your leg veins. So if there's weight to lose, even a modest amount eases the load on the whole staircase. And in the same spirit, avoid long stretches of standing perfectly still or sitting perfectly still. Those are the 2 positions where the pump goes quiet and the pressure builds. If your day includes a lot of one or the other, break it up. Shift your weight, rock onto your toes, walk to the far room instead of the near one. Let me also give you a word on food, because you asked me to be practical, and diet plays a supporting role here. This isn't about a miracle food that dissolves veins. Nothing does that, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. It's about 2 gentle, sensible directions. First, reducing excess salt can help, because too much salt encourages your body to hold onto fluid, and extra fluid means extra volume pressing outward in already overloaded legs. Second, staying well hydrated and eating enough fiber keeps things moving and prevents the kind of straining that spikes pressure in the lower body. Colorful fruits and vegetables, the ones rich in the natural compounds that support blood vessel walls, like berries, citrus, and leafy greens, are a reasonable, food-first way to give those vessel walls their best support. Simple, defensible, no magic required. Now let me give you the honest timeline, because I never want to promise you something your body can't deliver, and I don't want you to quit too soon. In the first week or 2 of using these tools, the movement snacks, the legs up the wall, the compression if your doctor approves it, the first thing most people notice is not the veins. It's the feeling. Legs that were heavy, achy, tired, or restless by evening start to feel lighter. That heaviness is one of the earliest symptoms, and it's often one of the earliest to ease because you're draining the pooled blood and dropping the pressure. That's your first sign. The approach is working a feeling, not a look. Over the following weeks, as the calf pump gets stronger and the daily pressure stays lower, Swelling that used to build up by the end of the day tends to be less pronounced. Your ankles at night look more like your ankles in the morning. That's the second thing to shift. But here's the part I have to be completely straight with you about because you deserve honesty, not hype. The spider veins you can already see may fade somewhat as the pressure behind them comes down, but they may not vanish on their own. A gait that is already stretched doesn't tighten back up just because you started walking. So please hear this clearly. The goal of everything I've described is not to erase the veins you have overnight. The goal is to lower the pressure driving the whole chain so your legs feel better, the swelling settles, and, just as importantly, you slow the formation of new ones and keep the whole condition from progressing to the more serious stages. If you also want the existing visible veins removed for how they look, there are simple in-office treatments a vein specialist can do, but that's a separate cosmetic decision, and it works far better on legs, where the underlying pressure is already being managed. Fix the pressure first, always. So let's bring the whole chain back together one last time, because I want you to leave with the picture whole in your mind. You look down and you see a web of fine purple lines on your thigh. Most people stop there and call it skin, or age, or vanity. But you now know better. You know that thread is the last visible link. Follow it inward, and you reach a slightly larger surface vein carrying too much. Follow that inward, and you reach a one-way gate that's no longer sealing, letting blood fall backward when it should be climbing. Follow that down to the very bottom, and you reach the real source pressure, built up by blood pooling in a leg whose second pump has gone too quiet. And the moment you understand that, you understand what to do. You don't paint over the gauge. You take the load off the gates. You wake the second heart up with movement. You let gravity drain the legs each evening. You give the veins gentle support from the outside. You lighten the fluid load. And you do it not for a week, but as a quiet new habit, because these legs are going to carry you for a long time yet, and they respond, at any age, to being helped. Which brings me to something I genuinely want to know. How old are you? What decade are you in right now? Are you in your 60s, your 70s, your 80s? Tell me in the comments, because after the age of 70, some of these mechanisms shift a little, and I want to know who I'm making these for. It shapes what I explain next. And that's the real reason I made this. Not to worry you about a few lines on your skin, but to hand you the map that connects them to something you can actually influence. The surface is only ever the tip. The power is always a little deeper. Now you know where to look. Take care of the pump, take the pressure off the gates, and give those hardworking legs of yours the help they've been quietly asking for. I'll see you in the next one.